Welcome everyone to the Shib to the Moon Enjoyment Initiative, your dive into all things Shiba Inu and the wider cryptosphere that influences it. But before we continue, a quick Shib check-in as of this production. As of April 16, 2025, Shiba Inu is exhibiting a phase of low volatility and consolidation, with the token trading at approximately $0.00001181, reflecting a marginal negative 0.02% dip over the past 24 hours. Intraday trading has remained tight, with Shib moving between $0.00001179 and $0.00001211. On the technical front, Shib is currently hovering near its lower Bollinger Band, signalling a possible oversold condition. The 20-day EMA, located at $0.00001222, is acting as a resistance zone, while the nearest key support lies around $0.00001066. A breakout or breakdown beyond these levels could define the next directional move. Within the ecosystem, the Shibarium Layer 2 network continues to see expansion, now hosting over 1 million wallet addresses. Recent increases in token burn activity are also notable, with millions of Shib being removed from circulation, an effort to drive scarcity and long-term value. However, the market tone remains cautious. Despite strong community engagement and ecosystem activity, Shib's current trajectory remains closely tied to the broader market sentiment, especially movements in Bitcoin and Ethereum. For now, Shib appears to be in a holding pattern, with traders watching for a potential catalyst, whether technical or narrative-driven, to spark the next big move. So today, at least for now, me and Alistair will be filling in for Dawn and Jay, and we are going to dissect a range of recent reports and analyses to get a better understanding of the market forces potentially affecting our favourite meme coin, Shib. Welcome, Alistair, one of the fresh faces, or perhaps more appropriately, one of the fresh voices of the channel.
Great to be here, Jonan, and hello, everyone. Always a fascinating ride with Shib.
Absolutely. We've got a fair bit to unpack, including CryptoBanter's take on tariffs and trading, direct Shiba Inu analysis from Clay Bro, Coin Bureau's insights into potential US Bitcoin bonds and institutional adoption, and some news updates on Trump's tariff policies from HuffPost UK and CNN. Let's kick things off with the broader economic landscape, the potential impact of Donald Trump's recent tariff announcements. Alistair, what did our sources suggest about this, and how might it relate to Shib?
Well, according to CryptoBanter, Trump's tariffs are viewed as a significant market mover, generating short-term trading opportunities across the crypto market, encompassing Bitcoin and altcoins. The presenter from CryptoBanter stated, "Uncle Donald is giving us so much content to long and short and all these things. So until he stops giving us that type of content, we're obviously going to keep featuring him, because this is the main reason why the markets are moving at the moment." Crypto was also highlighted by CryptoBanter as the only immediately tradable asset during the tariff news rollout, contributing to a weekend pump. This suggests Shib, being readily tradable, could experience similar short-term volatility based on macro news.
That's an interesting point. Claybro also touched upon the broader market context. Alistair, what were his thoughts?
Indeed. Claybro highlighted that analysts suggest Shib could potentially push towards the 1570 resistance level, which could be a 30% move, provided the broader market, specifically Bitcoin and Ethereum, holds up. So, the overall market health is definitely a factor in Shib's potential movements. Now, CryptoBanter also provided some technical analysis on Bitcoin and altcoins in general. Jonan, were there any insights that might indirectly apply to the altcoin market and Shib?
Well, CryptoBanter mentioned that a rejection from a wick fill on Bitcoin dominance is seen as a bullish indicator for altcoins, with further downward movement in dominance potentially leading to significant altcoin gains. This is important because when Bitcoin dominance decreases, investors often diversify into altcoins, including meme coins like Shib, seeking higher percentage returns. However, the analysis consistently cautioned about potential volatility, a factor always relevant for speculative assets like Shib.
Okay, so now let's delve into Claybro's analysis, which specifically focuses on Shiba Inu coin. So what were the key takeaways from his videos?
So Claybro made several crucial points. Firstly, he disputed negative headlines claiming Shib holders are jumping ship to other meme coins. He presented on-chain data showing a steady increase in Shib holder addresses, which at the time of his video stood at 1,507,529 wallet addresses. This directly contradicts some of the fear-mongering narratives. Secondly, he emphasized that crypto news frequently plays on emotions, with negative sentiment during price drops and excessive optimism during rallies. This is vital context for interpreting any news about Shib. He stated, "During times of fear, people flock to fear. Now during times of greed, they flock to greed. And when, not if, but when this ticks back up and we're in a green or a greedy situation, you're going to see the articles being written saying things like, people are leaving, Bitcoin, people are leaving altcoins to jump into meme coins, Shiba Inu coin is gaining traction, how high could it go? Could it go to $1? And you know it's the exact opposite of what we're seeing right now. Furthermore, Claybro explicitly stated that Shib's price action is driven by the excitement of the meme coin community and not fundamental developments or the actions of its figurehead, Satoshi Kusama. He argued that future price increases will originate from a revival of excitement within the meme coin community itself. He also strongly recommended diversification across various cryptocurrencies to manage the risk associated with the volatile price of a single coin like Shib. He was critical of relying on ecosystem developments or Satoshi Kusama for Shib's price action, citing past unfulfilled promises.
So it would seem that Claybro's perspective is that the community, sentiment, and the broader crypto market's performance are the main drivers for Shib, rather than specific fundamental updates.
Precisely, Alistair. His emphasis on Shib's meme coin nature aligns with the general understanding of such assets. This also implies Shib is likely more vulnerable to viral trends and social media buzz, which can be very unpredictable.
Now, let's move on to Coin Bureau's reports. One discussed the idea of the US government issuing Bitcoin-enhanced treasury bonds. Jonin, what was this proposal and what were Coin Bureau's initial thoughts?
The Bitcoin Policy Institute proposed a plan to issue bonds where 90% would be US treasuries, with a low yield of around 1%, and 10% would be allocated to Bitcoin accumulation. The rationale was to refinance US debt at lower interest rates, accumulate Bitcoin without taxpayer cost, potentially through price appreciation, and potentially boost Bitcoin's price. However, the people at Coin Bureau expressed skepticism about investor demand for such bonds, suggesting that the projected annualized return of around 7% might not be attractive enough, and that investors could potentially achieve better returns by independently holding a mix of US treasuries and Bitcoin. As Nick questioned, why can't someone just opt to hold 90% US treasuries and 10% Bitcoin? That way they could earn a 4.5% yield instead of a 1% yield. And they'd also be able to capture 100% of Bitcoin's upside, rather than just 50% above the 4.5% annualized return included in the Bitcoin bonds. This would surely be much better, no?
So, even if this plan were to gain traction, would it have a significant direct impact on Shiba Inu?
Indirectly, it could. If the US government were to start accumulating Bitcoin, it might certainly boost Bitcoin's price and overall market sentiment, which, as we've discussed, could have a positive knock-on effect for altcoins like Shib. However, given Coin Bureau's doubts about the feasibility and investor interest in these bonds, it's probably not a primary factor to consider for Shib's immediate price movements.
So, Jonan, the Coin Bureau also reported on the increasing trend of publicly traded companies quietly buying Bitcoin as a treasury asset. Which companies were mentioned, and what are the potential implications?
Several companies were highlighted, including Strategy, formerly MicroStrategy, Mara Holdings, Riot Platforms, Metaplanet, Semler Scientific, and Kango Inc. This trend suggests a growing institutional adoption of Bitcoin as a long-term store of value. The implications for the broader crypto market are generally seen as bullish in the long run, as increased demand from institutions could drive up Bitcoin's price. Strategy, for instance, has accumulated a significant amount of Bitcoin and even rebranded to focus on it.
Could you say that this trend of institutional Bitcoin adoption have any influence on the wider altcoin market, which includes Shib?
Yes, potentially. While these institutions are primarily focused on Bitcoin, their increasing involvement in the cryptocurrency space as a whole could legitimize the asset class and attract more investors, some of whom might eventually look towards altcoins for higher risk, higher reward opportunities. However, the direct impact on a meme coin like Shib might be less immediate and pronounced than on more established altcoins with clearer utility.
And finally, we had news reports from HuffPost UK and CNN regarding the tariff exemptions on electronics. There seemed to be some initial news of exemptions, followed by a walkback, suggesting these exemptions might be temporary. Jonan, how might this uncertainty surrounding tariffs on technology impact the crypto market?
The shifting stance on tariff exemptions for electronics creates uncertainty and potential volatility in traditional markets, particularly for tech stocks. Crypto markets, as we've seen, can react to broader economic news and sentiment. If this tariff uncertainty leads to significant downturns or volatility in traditional markets, it could potentially spill over into the crypto market, causing investors to become more risk-averse and potentially impacting assets like Shiba Inu. The initial positive reaction in tech stocks mentioned by CryptoBanter could be short-lived if these exemptions are indeed temporary. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick stated that the exemption for electronics from reciprocal tariffs was only temporary, as they would be included in semiconductor tariffs coming soon. President Trump also clarified that there was no tariff exception announced on Friday, and that these products were just moving to a different tariff bucket. Elizabeth Warren described this situation as chaos and corruption.
So, to wrap up our discussion, Jonan, what are the key takeaways regarding the potential effects of these various market forces on Shiba Inu coin?
In summary, Shiba Inu's price action appears to be most directly influenced by overall market sentiment, particularly the performance of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the sentiment and excitement within the meme coin community itself, as Clay Bro emphasized. While broader macroeconomic factors like tariffs and the growing institutional adoption of Bitcoin can introduce volatility and potentially affect the wider crypto market, their direct and immediate impact on Shib may be less significant than the prevailing mood of crypto traders and meme coin enthusiasts. Investors in Shib should pay close attention to broader market trends and sentiment, but also recognize the speculative and community-driven nature of this particular digital asset.
Thanks for the comprehensive overview.
Likewise to you, Alistair. It was a nice exchange for us, so that the listeners can have a grasp on some of the important information regarding the Shiba Inu coin and the wider crypto market and how it's being affected by major shifts in global policy. And to you who is listening, it's clear that while Shiba Inu operates within the larger crypto ecosystem, its price movements often have their own distinct drivers rooted in community dynamics and overall market enthusiasm.
That's all for now here on the Shib to the Moon Enjoyment Initiative. Join me and Jonan, or Jonan, Don and Jay, next time as we explore another facet of the ever-evolving world of crypto. Until then, keep those paws positive